The Strymon Iridium is perhaps the most beloved amp sim on the market today. It is well documented that you can recreate great classic tones with the Strymon Iridium, but a huge part of putting together your guitar rig is, of course, guitar pedals. And I'm super curious to compare driving a tube amp and an amp sim with the same guitar pedals on the same settings to see how similar the results are. Does an amp sim drive like the real thing? Let's find out. Driving an amp refers to the amount of distortion you get in the output stage. And this has a synergistic relationship with distortion pedals. Of course, you get clipping from the pedals themselves, but if the output level of the pedal is high enough, you'll get additional clipping from driving the amp. And that's why I'm so curious to run this test. Can an amp sim really break up like a tube amp when driven by pedals? So let's talk gear. I'll be using my Vox AC-30 from 2002 and a Gibson Gothic V-Wing with humbuckers. My microphones were a Shure SM57 up close and a Sterling ST79 large diaphragm condenser mic a few feet away. The Strymon Iridium is set to the Chime amp, which is modeled after the Vox AC-30, and then I just started fiddling, trying to match the clean tones of the amp and the pedal. I trusted my ears and found that Cab C was the closest tone match. I did my best to calibrate the drive of the pedal and the volume of the amp, so both sound completely clean, but they're both just under that threshold where they'll start to break up. Here's my pedal board all set up and ready to go. My signal chain is my tuner, a Mira optical compressor from Walrus Audio to even out dynamics. Next up, we have our Pet Yeti distortion pedal in the Neon Nuclear Wasteland color scheme and a second one in the Dark Doomy Deathscape color scheme. They're the same circuit, but they are set to completely different settings for the purposes of the test. Then we have our Emma award-winning Best Tremolo of 2024, the Gravity Well, which is half wave folder and half tremolo, and of course the Strymon Iridium to end out the chain. For the rest of this video, when you see this shot of me playing guitar behind the amp, that sound is coming from the amp. And if you hear guitar over a shot of the pedal board, that sound is coming from the Strymon Iridium. I'll play these shots back again so you can hear the clean tone. I feel really good about this clean tone match, and I think it's a great equal footing from which to start driving the amps. All right, let's get to the pedals. I'm gonna start with the Neon Nuclear Wasteland Pet Yeti dialed in to a fuzz tone. I'll engage the germanium diodes, turn up the shape knob to feed low end into the distortion, and turn down the tone knob to roll off some high end. The amount of drive is pretty similar. I feel like the saturation across the frequency spectrum, I'm noticing some differences, and I think the Strymon is a little bit crunchier, but both amps sound awesome. Next up, the Dark Doomy Deathscape Pet Yeti. For this tone, I'm gonna engage the silicone diodes and roll off some low-end pre-distortion, and then turn up the tone knob post-distortion. Basically the opposite of what I did on this pedal. I've been playing a lot of Warframe 1999, so I got the 90s on my mind, so this is sort of like a 90s punkish tone. On this brighter, thinner distortion tone, I feel like the AC-30 sounded worlds better. Driving the Strymon with these settings yielded a harshness that I did not care for. Next up, the Gravity Well, our brand new pedal. This is half wave folder and half tremolo, and the reason I wanted to try this is because wave folding is a form of distortion. So when you turn up the gain on the wave folder, you are driving your amp in a really interesting way that then modulates with the tremolo side engaged as well. So let's get a nice deep tremolo. I'm gonna set the flow to go from the tremolo into the wave folder with a pretty heavy gain and see what we get. So now a pattern is emerging. Driving the Strymon is much more present in the upper mids and into the high end, and driving into the AC-30 I feel like hits a lot more evenly across the full frequency spectrum, and maintains a lot more low end. So do these amps drive in the same way? There's a lot of similarities, and for an amp sim, the Strymon is really doing some amazing heavy lifting, but there's definitely some differences in how the amps are saturating. Which one is better and which one is worse, that is a judgment call that is up to you, and I want to hear from you. Let me know in the comments which you prefer. The last thing I want to do, no pedals. We're just going to turn up the gain on both amps and see what we get. For many years, I didn't have any distortion pedals. I just cranked my tube amp all the way up. It's super unwieldy, it's so loud, completely impractical, but hey, that's what I was doing for years. I love the sound of tubes breaking up, and I will be so impressed if the Strymon can match what the Vox AC-30 can do. Okay, this is an interesting comparison because with the tube amp turned all the way up, that's waking up the neighbors. This thing, no one else can hear it. So huge difference in the actual experience of playing that, you know, being in the room with an amp that loud. On the AC-30, I am driving real tubes to break up, and on this thing, it's pretending to have tubes breaking up, and the fact that it's that close is pretty incredible. On pure tone, I have to give it to the AC-30. Nothing beats the real thing. It's a classic for a reason. But there are so many use cases where I will reach for the Strymon instead. Ease of use is a huge factor. It is so much lighter. You can just put it on your pedal board and not even bring an amp to a gig. You can have world-class tone in your headphones while you're practicing and no one else can hear you. You can make a full album in your studio apartment surrounded by neighbors and no one else will know what's going on. And now I feel like I've really wrapped my brain around the differences in how they break up. If I want that creamy classic Vox tone, it's worth it to set up the mics and pull out the real amp. But the Strymon is a fantastic tool. The ease of use is incredible. There are so many applications where I will absolutely reach for it over and over again. Not to mention the fact that there are a ton more tones on this pedal. It has 3 amps and 9 cabinets to play around with. And you can even add more impulse responses. The possibilities are endless. But I want to hear from you. Which amp do you prefer? Are there other amp sims out there that you've played with that you think I should try? Thank you so much for checking out this video. If you want to learn more about our pedals, head to our website, Cosmodio.io.